Hello, I'm Sachi Inari Rizzo, curator of Prints and Drawings. Every other month, I present a talk in the Print and Drawing Study Center and offer it virtually. For this season, we've been looking at the post-World War II print renaissance in the U.S., seen in the proliferation of printmaking workshops, their interconnections, and the artists with whom they are making some of the most exciting prints that we see today. Contemporary printmaking offers an array of voices, representing artists from culturally diverse backgrounds. In March, we looked at examples of printmaking workshops that are community-centered, meaning that the print shops have been an integral part of the communities that they are serving. In Los Angeles and Austin, Texas, Self-Help Graphics and Coronado Studios have provided resources and access, especially to Latinx communities. In this talk, we will continue to focus on printmaking workshops that early on carved out spaces to fulfill a need for artists of color. I would like to begin by acknowledging the legendary Robert Blackburn. In this print, Ron Adams pays homage to Blackburn, who was an artist and the first master printer for Universal Limited Art Editions that we discussed back in September. For a period, both Blackburn and Adams were the only Black master lithographers in the country. Blackburn's introduction to lithography came through the Harlem Community Arts Center in New York and the Art Students League teacher Will Barnett from 1940 to 1943. However, gaining further professional instruction and experience proved to be difficult, particularly as an African American. Receiving a fellowship, Blackburn traveled to France, but printers were reluctant to share their technical knowledge. Blackburn's biggest legacy is his printmaking workshop in 1948, not long after he acquired his own lithography press. Speaking about its founding, he commented, "This occurred as a direct result of discrimination and exclusion of the Black artists from the creative activities of the established male-dominated white art world. At that time, one could not separate life in Georgia, Mississippi, Texas, and Louisiana, American life in general, from the world of the arts, printmaking, and teaching." Due to his past experiences, Blackburn ensured that his workshop would maintain a collaborative collegial atmosphere and would be open to artists and students of all races, nationalities, and socioeconomic levels. They would have access to an experienced printmaker as well. Located in Chelsea on 17th Street in New York City, it was known as the Bob Blackburn Workshop, then the Creative Lithographic Workshop in 1955, and finally the Printmaking Workshop in 1959. It continued as a cooperative workshop until 1971, when it became incorporated as a nonprofit institution. In 2002, the workshop closed as Blackburn's health failed, and then passing away the following year. In 2005, a workshop honoring Blackburn opened in association with the Elizabeth Foundation for the Arts. Deserving mention is Brandywine Workshop and Archives in Philadelphia, even though we do not own any works created there. The visionary behind the organization is founder, director, and Philadelphia native Alan Edmonds, who retired in 2022 after 50 years. Edmonds received a BFA and MFA from Tyler School of Art at Temple University, where he majored in printmaking and minored in education. Edmonds was a fellow MFA student at Tyler with Sister Karen Bocalero. Interestingly, they both went on to open printmaking workshops that would make the medium accessible to underrepresented artists. Sister Karen co-founded Self-Help Graphics in Los Angeles. Edmonds described the art scene. The 1960s was the heyday of printmaking in America, but that's because the white printers were making prints with famous white painters. But the heyday really was the 1970s and 1980s in the minority communities, when it really grew and got this diversity, and also the print departments in the universities expanded. Edmonds opened the Brandywine Graphic Workshop in 1972, located in Spring Garden, a working-class neighborhood in North Philadelphia. Edmonds went on to say there was very little support for artists of color, both male and female, and they were marginalized as not contributing to American culture. They weren't in books, museums. I decided to start the Brandywine Workshop. In its early times, Brandywine worked with local youth and young artists, producing limited edition prints. In 1975, they established their visiting artist residency program with artists such as Sam Gilliam and Romare Bearden. They have hosted 450 artists in residence and have collaborated on 1,100 prints. Next, I would like to take time to focus on Joe Segura. He founded the Segura Publishing Company in Tempe, Arizona, and then moved the printmaking studio to University of Notre Dame in 2013, changing the name to Segura Art Studio. Segura, seen on the right, earned an MFA from Southern Illinois University in Carbondale. Ironically, he took a printmaking class, and it was not a positive experience. At the beckoning of a fellow graduate student and friend, he agreed to make some drawings on a lithostone. She printed the lithographs. He was pleased with the results and enjoyed the collaborative approach. He then went through Tamarind Institute's Master Printer program. In 1979, Segura became Master Printer for the Print Research Facility at Arizona State University and then established Segura Publishing Company in Tempe in 1981. He perceived a need, or what he called a void, in the market. Segura stated that it offered an avenue for us to explore different forms of art that I was interested in, and one that I was particularly interested in was Hispanic art, and it always will be because I am Hispanic. And another form that encompassed Hispanic art and many other art forms and interested me was contemporary art with specific emphasis on the Western United States. Segura cited 3 areas of artistic endeavor for the print studio. 1, work by minority artists exploring issues related to self-identification. 2, print processes which further the creative possibilities for photographers and conceptual artists using photography. And 3, work that dispels outdated and culturally biased beliefs about life in the United States. I like to include the Printmaking Workshop's logo or chop mark. Here the raven is a meaningful symbol for the Segura's print shop due to its mythological role as a messenger and its acute sense of the environment. These are qualities that a printer and publisher require too. Mark Klett is known for his photographs capturing the Southwest. He has a bachelor's degree in geology and photography and photograph for the U.S. Geological Survey. Klett also completed an MFA in photography in 1977. In 1982, he was hired by Arizona State University as a master printer for the Photographic Collaborative Facility. Joe Segura was a master printer with ASU's Print Research Facility. The two worked closely and collaborated with graduate students on research projects and in the publication of new creative work. Segura's friendship with Klett, whose work is seen here, led to an area of Segura's interest, 19th century photographic techniques. This is atypical for print publisher. The historical photographic printing techniques can be labor-intensive. Segura worked in photogravure, ambrotype, palladium, and collotype. Segura used photogravure to make multiple prints of Klett's photographic images. Because of the medium's rich tonal quality and sharp detail, they were often used to reproduce paintings and photographs. They were printed in books from 1890 to 1930. In photogravure, a copper plate is dusted and heated with resin, a granular material similar to aquatint. A light-sensitive gelatin or carbon tissue is exposed through an image bearing positive transparency and is rinsed. The exposed carbon tissue is placed on the copper plate that is coated with the aquatint ground. The gelatin acts like a resist, providing varying levels of protection to the plate when immersed in an acid bath, and the acid bites into the plate around the aquatint grains unprotected by the gelatin. Before printing, the aquatint ground and gelatin are removed from the plate, leaving the etched image. The plate is inked and run through an intaglio printing press. Klett began a portrait series of the saguaro cactus, originally titled Desert Citizens. They are synonymous with the Southwest, but the species is specific to the Sonoran Desert in Arizona, Mexico, and areas of California. They can grow up to 40 feet and can survive for over 200 years. Luis Jimenez is an amazing draftsman. He made his first print with Segura in 1983 and was a regular visiting artist. In most of his works, Luis Jimenez also used imagery of the Southwest, especially the region extending between Mexico and the United States. His vision of the West differs from that of popular mythology, first created by writers and artists from the East. He challenges the viewer by representing popular American myths and forgotten stories and gives a new view of heroes, including the cowboy, farmer, and steelworker. He is best known for his colorful, glossy sculpture in fiberglass and spray painted with automotive paints, which were unorthodox materials at the time. Fiberglass is better known for cars and boats. His paint often glistens, inspired by lowrider car culture. Equally shiny and vibrant are the colors in Sidewinder on the right, which is printed in blue, purple, and yellow inks with gold metal flakes, or glitter, making the print sparkle. In 2006, Jimenez tragically died when one of his sculptures fell and pinned him in his studio. Segura drove to his friend's ranch in New Mexico and assisted with the burial. In 2013, Segura moved to South Bend, Indiana, and renamed it Segura Art Studio, and was purchased by the University of Notre Dame as part of an off-campus outreach program at the newly built Notre Dame Center for Arts and Culture. This included a 3-year pilot program called Social Justice in the Visual Arts. The give and take in the collaborative printmaking model inspired Segura. The technical aspect was interesting, but not sustaining. He said, "The medium is important, but it's not the driving force in my work." Over the years, Segura was committed to works with a socio-political message, following in the tradition of William Hogarth, Ben Shahn, Kata Kollwitz, and Elizabeth Catlett. While located at Notre Dame, Segura continued to invite and collaborate with artists with an interest in activism and education. It was during these years at Notre Dame that the Fort Wayne Museum of Art was able to purchase 43 of their prints. Claudia Bernardi was the first visiting artist at their new location. Her art is informed by forensic work, but does not dwell on its violence and gruesome details. Bernardi's sister was a founding member of the non-governmental Argentine Forensic Anthropology team, formed in 1984. They conducted investigations into human rights violations against civilian populations. In 1992, Bernardi joined her sister in El Salvador. She has worked with the group for 30 years in Argentina, Guatemala, El Salvador, and Ethiopia. The color in the museum's Palabras de Arena, or Words of Sand, is radiant and immediately lures you in. The intense yellow-orange color field is reminiscent of an old hand-drawn map with a mountain range, meandering lines for rivers, and symbols for churches. In large script are the first letters of what is likely Mexico. Superimposed are dresses, shoes, and female figures, some fragmented, silhouetted, and skeletal. The artist builds up color layer by layer, applying 15 inks in yellows, reds, and blues on 5 etched copper plates. The colors were printed a la poupée, a process of applying multiple colored inks by hand in different areas on a single plate. Sue Ko is best known for using the print medium as a form of political activism, which fit well into the mission. Dramatically using black and white, the viewer is not distracted from the subject by color. Usually her works are unsettling and cover a range of topics from capitalism to war to human and animal rights. In La Frontera, or the border, on the left, our attention is drawn to the robust man who fills the foreground, but despite his large presence is folded onto his knees in submission. His hands have been bound behind his back, we assume by the small figure in the distance, who is likely an arresting Border Patrol officer. Ko sympathizes with the border crosser by giving attention to his facial features and surrounds him with an aura. I can't help but see the similarities between the facial features of the subject and Joe Segura. Despite the dramatic scale difference, clearly the power relationship between the men is the opposite. It's not due to physical strength, but his identity. Ko received critical attention for an animal-based print series entitled Porkopolis, comparing animal cruelty with the Holocaust. In Judgment at Nürburgring, the animals seem to revisit the infamous 1948 Nuremberg trials, in which Nazi war criminals were brought to justice in court. The artist tends to illustrate victims versus oppressors, in this case, meat conglomerates. Faith Ringgold's work is not as strident as Cole's. She has used her gift for storytelling to create narratives on quilts painted in a faux naive style. She refers to these as story quilts. In 1992, Ringgold moved to Jones Road in Englewood, New Jersey, to build her studio and gardens. She faced unanticipated opposition from her new neighbors and spent years trying to secure the legal permits to build her studio. Ringgold created a series of quilts and prints entitled Coming to Jones Road to transform the hostility she experienced into a celebration of the freedom won by enslaved African Americans who ran away from the South to New Jersey before her. She tells the story of the journey here. Aunt Emmy is inspired by Ringgold's grandmother, Betsy Bingham, who was remembered as a strong matriarch. Among the artists invited for Segura Art Studio's second year was Enrique Chagoya, who is an artist and professor at Stanford University. In the 7-color etching on aquatint entitled Untitled, The Near Distant Jungle, you sense how Chagoya enjoys juxtaposing imagery from different sources. Using satire and humor, he explores different social issues. In this example, the world has been turned upside down. The text, The Near Distant, is written in an older historical-looking font and is upended. The more contemporary font used for jungle, drawn with 3D perspective, is backwards. Our pileup of figures is composed of people with different skin tones, realms. We have a blonde-haired female superhero. Different time periods. We have an outstretched hand that catches a woman's head. And is this an armored body part from the past or from the future? We are in the middle of an apparent flood as we only see the tops of people's heads. Some writers suggest this is a commentary on the rising sea levels due to global warming. Climate change was on Chagoya's mind as a theme in an exhibition the same year at the George Adams Gallery. An artistic area of interest for Segura is work that dispels outdated and culturally biased beliefs about life in the United States. Photographer Matika Wilbur, who is Swinomish and Tulalip descent, is an excellent example of this. Tired of seeing generalized stereotypical depictions of Native Americans in pop culture and in the media, Wilbur sought an alternative to this monolithic view. One of the best-known series of indigenous people in the West was made by turn-of-the-century non-native photographer Edward Curtis. Although he set out to pay homage, Curtis's work has been criticized for being untrue to the time and instead creating romantic, nostalgic images of a supposedly vanishing race. He carried props, sometimes pairing members of tribes with inaccurate clothing and tools. In 2012, Wilbur embarked on her Kickstarter-funded Project 562, named for her monumental intent to represent members from each of the 562 federally recognized U.S. tribes in photographs and oral history. Project 562 is a multidimensional statement. Wilbur described, "My goal is to unveil the true essence of contemporary Native issues, the beauty of Native culture, the magnitude of tradition, and expose her vitality." Over the course of 10 years, she traveled 600,000 miles across 50 states. In addition to providing accurate images that show a rich diversity of people, Wilbur gave her subjects a voice by asking them to choose their clothes, pose, and location. Her now completed book also includes personal narratives. Born in Mexico, Claudio Dicochea received his MFA from Arizona State University. The artist shows the influence of casta, or caste paintings, that were portrayed interracial marriages between Spanish, indigenous, and African people living in the Spanish colonies in the New World in the 18th century. An example of a casta painting is on the right. Castas are made up of 16 figure groupings, each consisting of a man, woman, and their child or children, complete with inscriptions identifying the races. These paintings reveal colonial views on lineage, bloodline, and social status, with European-born Spaniards of the highest status and African descent at the bottom. While inspiration may come from casta paintings, Dicochea creates a humorous mashup from pop culture. The couple is singers Sid Vicious from the Sex Pistols and Selena, both having dark skin and dressed regally. Their offspring is Albert Einstein riding a lowrider bike. The artist stated, "By recontextualizing these visual stereotypes through old casta paintings, their meaning can be dismantled and broken loose from fixed identities. In that light, remaking old casta paintings is a critique of the role visual arts have played and continue to play in shaping the social constructs of race, gender, and class." Being affiliated with Notre Dame allows Segura to work with artists across the country. However, just as he worked with Southwestern artists when he was based in Arizona, he also worked with artists working in South Bend. Maria Tomasula is a painter and professor of studio art at the University of Notre Dame, and Ramiro Rodriguez is a printmaker and works for the Racklin Murphy Museum of Art in South Bend. Like other printmaking workshops, Segura did not require printmaking experience. In this case, Einar and Jamex de la Torre are brothers who have been collaborating together in blown glass installations and lenticular prints since the 1990s. Perhaps it's their background creating sculptural work that gives an interesting three-dimensional quality to Budapest's bathhouse. It seems to possess the optical distortion that comes with taking a panoramic photograph. In this case, it seems to be looking at a vaulted ceiling in a cathedral. This is only a sampling of the prints that we purchased from Segura Art Studio. Sadly, in 2018, the print shop was unable to meet the challenge that the university posed to be financially self-sustaining. The Segura Art Studio was shuttered, like so many other affiliated with universities. Crow Shadow Institute of the Arts is another important studio that has helped diversify the art world in prints. We were able to acquire 14 prints several years ago. In 1992, painter James Lavador on the right and fellow artist Philip Kashkash co-founded Crow Shadow Institute of the Arts. The name Crow Shadow comes from the first painting Lavador sold. While Lavador was gaining recognition and making a name for himself in the art world, he wanted to ensure that aspiring Native American artists had support, professional opportunities, and a sense of community. He saw the need for access to resources on the reservation, including art materials, equipment, and instruction. Crow Shadow garnered support from the community, with 20 members contributing $1,000 each as seed money. Further support came from the Bureau of Indian Affairs and the United States Department of Agriculture, Rural Development, and Administration. Crow Shadow is housed in a former Catholic mission school on the Confederated Tribes of the Umatilla Indian Reservation outside of Pendleton, Oregon. In exchange for the use of space, the Jesuits asked them to cover the renovation. The nonprofit organization provides a creative conduit for educational, social, and economic opportunities for Native Americans through artistic development. Its programming focuses on both traditional and contemporary art. It is open to all people, and it has become renowned for its 2-week artist residencies and print publishing program. This is a work by Lavador created at Crow Shadow from our collection. The artist brings together two opposing approaches that he has been pursuing in his paintings in the six-color lithograph entitled Stick House. He combined his organic fluid approach to landscapes and geometrical abstractions. Lavador brushed alcohol-based toner washes onto mylar, which was transferred to plates. The sweeping gestural brushstroke moves in different directions, charged with natural forces. At the same time, the terrain appears ethereal and misty as it was printed with lavender and light yellow inks. The grainy reticulation pattern created by the washes suggests the striations of sedimentary rock layers. In contrast, the architectural structure appears partially built and ghostly, made up of dark brown lines that are assertive and drip. We were able to acquire 3 prints by Wendy Redstar from the time she worked at Crow Shadow. Born in Billings, Montana in 1981, Redstar grew up on the Opsaluka or Crow Reservation in southeastern Montana and is now based in Portland, Oregon. Redstar's subjects are inspired by familiar images when she returns home. She recalled, "Often these cars and houses are viewed as blemishes that indicate laziness, poverty, and a deficiency in education. Living around these cars and houses, though, they have come to represent a resilient and proud community to me, a community that overcomes obstacles to keep its culture alive. I see beauty in these objects and in their particularity. They somehow make me proud to be part of an evolving Crow culture." In the HUD, uniform one-story homes are stacked in a pyramid like children's box. HUD is short for the Department of Housing and Urban Development, established in 1965 to ensure all people have access to affordable housing. Through the direction of the Bureau of Indian Affairs, HUD houses are a common image on the Crow Reservation and others, beginning in the 1970s through today. Red Star photographed houses and cars in Pryor on the reservation, sometimes focusing on those belonging to family members and friends. Often the owners relayed stories that brought the objects to life. Like children's blocks, HUD homes are not known for individuality. However, as you look at the print more, each house bears details revealing information about the owners. Bicycle lights, cars, folding chairs, bikes, and scooters are out front. Homes are painted in an array of joyfully bright colors: maroon, lavender, yellow, aqua, and flamingo pink, as they playfully stack on top of each other into a tower into the sky. In Res Car 2, a broken down car drawn in silver ink is set against a solid pink background. The elimination of the subject's context encourages the viewer to examine it more closely. Some may initially view these dilapidated cars as a sign of poverty and oppression, but the bright color tempers this interpretation. Red Star herself has fond childhood memories of playing in Res Cars, a vehicle for imaginary journeys. Red Star suggests a quiet, harmonious moment in this print, Enid, an expression of agreement like, isn't it? Since 1904, Crow Fair has taken place every third week in August near Billings, Montana. The fair began as a means for the U.S. government to reinforce their agricultural agenda. The current celebration is a gathering for all Indigenous people of the Great Plains and is an expression of pride as people gather wearing their finest and participate in parades, dances, and rodeos. In Enid, two women sit on top of a parade car, which is elaborately decorated with blankets. They look out at an abstract sunset made up of bands of yellow, orange, and blue that recall a woven fabric, perhaps a blanket pattern from the Pendleton Woolen Mills. Marie Watt is best known for her monumental sculptural works in which she folds and stacks blankets that become towers linking the sky and earth. Making prints may have allowed Watt to explore ideas in a small format. The lithograph Portal from 2002 on the left shares an affinity with her first blanket wall piece entitled Flow of Time from 2004 in the collection of the Portland Art Museum. Portal has muted earth tones that are comparable to the dye colors found in her wool blanket pieces. Its wiry, curving lines are segmented like a backstitch used for embroidered outlines. In Flow of Time on the right, Watt uses strands of wool to form looping lines that extend down past the edge onto the floor, perhaps calling to mind a dream catcher. In woodcut, typically the printmaker uses a gouge and knife to make cuts into the wood block. Instead, Watt relies only on the roulette, a printmaking tool with a small spiked wheel, for mark making to create the subtle abstract patterns in plow, tether, and vest. And these are all from 2011. She only used 2 inks in her woodcuts, but the overlaid inks blended to create multiple colors. Watt used Sheena plywood for her block, a fine-grained wood that carves easily and retains details through repeated printing. As the roulette rolls across the surface, it leaves behind an incised, textured pattern. These tiny flecks resemble a running stitch, recalling Watt's expressive hand stitching on her blankets. Artists do not have to be Native American to work at Crow Shadow. Adnan Charara is Lebanese-American artist working in Detroit, Michigan. His prints are populated by whimsical, anthropomorphic, handheld kitchen tools. It could be an egg beater that pirouettes like a ballet dancer, In this case, the potato masher, or stockbroker, is aptly surrounded by a wallpaper of money. Chirara explains, the use of comical and at times cartoon-like subject matter in my paintings, prints, and sculptures allows me to present existential motifs in a simplified form. This final artist is Jeffrey Gibson, who was selected to represent the U.S. in the Venice Biennale this year and was a MacArthur Fellow in 2019. During his visit to Crow's Shadow, he created a series of monotypes entitled The Stranger. Each is unique and has recognizable and pure abstract elements. The prints share the same eyes and mouth that you can barely make out in the lower portion of the prints. However, they are not intended to be portraits, as the features were taken from images off the internet. Gibson commented, in these prints, I wanted to have the backgrounds inform the reading of each face, the same face altered by its environment. The identity of this face shifts from print to print. The responsibility of the reading falls somewhere between what I have put out there and the viewer to determine any identifying factors. So thank you for joining me today. This was the final print room talk of the season, and we will resume in September. You're welcome to catch up on past virtual print room talks, curators tours, lectures, and other Fort Wayne Museum of Art educational programs on our YouTube channel.